Well, good morning, everyone. We're back on old Route 66, and finally, we've come up the mountain away from what I like to think of as Southern California and up into the California high desert, the Mojave Desert. Today is really the first day of the trip, the first night I'll be away from home, and in some ways, really the true beginning of our Route 66 adventure.
Today we are in Victorville, California, right here on the side of old Route 66, and look at this guy. He is having a much worse day than us, poor crow. There's a lot of history in Victorville, like this. The old Barrel House, a 100-plus-year-old liquor store. But today I'm not thirsty for booze, I'm hungry for history, so I've come somewhere I've always wanted to go. The California Route 66 Museum and Visitor Center. Look at this, the building was built in the 1930s as the Red Rooster Restaurant. And now, supposedly, it's the biggest and best Route 66 museum in Southern California. I've driven by this place 1,000 times, but it's never been opened when I happen to be passing through. But I like the look of it already. You got this old Studebaker truck parked outside. The flags are flapping in the breeze on the side of the old Mother Road, and look at this old car passing through here. That is pretty freaking cool. And speaking of cars, there seems to be some sort of impromptu car show around the side of the museum. There's a ton of Dodge Challengers and Chargers out here. Actually, a bunch of Chrysler Jeep cars around the side of the building. Hey, I just realized I drove here in a Dodge Journey. I should have joined these guys. Check out this massive, epic mural of Route 66 through Southern California. Look at that. Santa Monica Pier, we started there. There's Pasadena, San Bernardino, and Victorville. If you're headed to the Pacific Ocean from Chicago, at this point you're probably pretty stoked. Santa Monica or bust. Of course, we're going the other way, so. This place is more of a beginning to our journey than a sign of the end. Check out this old guardrail. I bet there's more inside. Oh, yes. This is amazing. Look at all this great old stuff. I want this. See, we scooped out of SoCal up to Victorville. Now we just need to make our way across the USA. No sweat. The sheer amount of local artifacts and signs and old photographs in here. It's very overstimulating. This place is awesome. Look at this old menu here. Hotcakes with ham or bacon. 85 freaking cents. And how about this room in here? Look at this old Model T here, all set up with those canvas water bags to refill the radiator and also to give you something to drink on that long trip across the desert. Pretty rough and rugged. Doesn't look like the shocks would be very good on these bad boys, although it seems like engine repairs would be far simpler. The cool part about this is that you can climb up and take a seat. Oh yeah, all right, man. I would love to drive one of these across the desert, although I feel like you are quite likely to get a sunburn. You know what I just realized here is that this car, this 1917 Model T, I believe, is 100 years old. We are now dealing with a situation where common cars are going to be 100 years old. Lots of great Route 66 artifacts in here. Tons of old signs and old equipment from service stations. There's even a massive, massive section devoted to local history. Tons of local photographs. Like, look at that. The old owner of the Barrel House. Just page after page of other Victorville sites, including some lost attractions like Miles Mahan's old Hulaville. Guy retires, buys a couple of acres along the side of Route 66, and built himself a roadside attraction. You guys, goals. One of the first thing old Miles did was to buy a giant old used neon hula girl sign, which is why people always referred to his property as Hulaville, although he himself called it Mahan's Half Acre. And look at this. These are some of the actual remnants left from the original Hulaville. It's kind of mind-blowing. Later, hopefully, we'll stop by the Bottle Tree Ranch again. This model clearly shows how Hulaville was basically the grandfather of the Bottle Tree Ranch. Now, it's a bummer that the old original roadside attraction is gone now. But how awesome is it that this place is preserving what's left of a very unique stop along Route 66. That's pretty friggin' cool. What's in here? Oh, excuse me, sir. Ooh. Oh, he probably should have locked the door. Anyway, this place is seriously amazing. There's so much stuff in here. It would take an entire week to look at it all.
It's hard to come up to Victorville without talking about Roy Rogers.
That famous cowboy lived up here and he loved the high desert.
For years and years and years, Victorville was home to the Roy Rogers Museum.
But after Roy Rogers passed away, interest levels dropped.
The museum was eventually moved, I think, to Branson, Missouri before it closed down completely.
Any of you guys fans of Roy Rogers and old Trigger the horse?
Then you are definitely going to want to come and visit Victorville.
All right, time to go.
Because as much as I love this epic museum,
I have many more miles to travel today. Just gonna take a last peep at this old Pepsi machine here. That's awesome. One last gander at these old gas pumps. Goodbye, scary mannequin.
Now I am, of course, traveling Route 66 in a rented car,
Which means I can't really put stickers on the vehicle.
But luckily, the Route 66 Museum had me covered.
Because I'm pretty sure there's no rule against magnets.
I tried to stick it on the hood, but apparently the hood isn't magnetic.
Also, I didn't stop there. I also bought this magnet.
Just got really excited. I think I might have got a little overexcited about the magnets.
Well, overexcited or no,
It's time to go.
oh, all right, now that is more like it.
A little open road and a little less traffic than I've had the last couple days.
Here it comes. Route 66 shield on the highway, yes!
When you think Route 66, you think open road.
Open road is definitely a giant part of the reason I love driving this highway.
Getting away from traffic, twisting and turning and rising and falling with the contours of the land.
To me, that has to be the best part of driving old Route 66 instead of a modern interstate.
Well, that and places like this.
Elmer Long's Bottle Tree Ranch, the spiritual successor
Of old Hulahville that we were talking about earlier.
I love coming to this forest of bottle trees in the middle of basically nowhere.
Something peaceful about this part of old Route 66.
Not to mention that I, love looking at weird things and antiques.
And Elmer here has put together something in his front yard
that brings both of those things together in a way that I can truly appreciate.
I love that there are so many people who dedicate themselves to creating free, interesting things to see off the highway, although they could and should maybe charge.
I love the idea that living out here can become an inspiration for creativity.
Yep, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This place is the bomb.
Wamp, 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 wamp. You like that one? You know you like it.
I'm a crack shot at humor.
Time to be moving along.
The Bottle Tree Ranch is smack dab in the middle of Victorville
And old Barstow, California.
with a little help from our friend Jiminy over there and a couple of dusty miles under our rubber tires.
We should be there in no time.
And look at that, we're already here. We certainly got here a lot faster than that train is moving. Welcome back to Barstow's Casa del Desierto, a historic railroad stop and hotel. Wow, that train right there, he's booking it. Oh. Anyway, a historic railroad hotel built by none other than Fred Harvey and the Fred Harvey Company, several of which used to dot the southwestern landscape and were known as Harvey houses. It's really more of a railroad history site than a Route 66 history site, since Route 66 is over there on the other side of the track. But southwestern tourism really began with the railroads. The railroads were what populated the West originally, and it was boosters like Harvey over there that made southwestern pleasure traveling possible. They brought a sense of comfort and style to the Southwest and really opened the Southwest to tourists instead of just miners and prospectors and people seeking their fortunes. In a way, the old Santa Fe Railroad and things like that were the grandfathers of Route 66. And in a lot of places, especially in old Southern California, Route 66 closely follows the old railroad routes. Well, to be slightly more accurate, there were wagon roads and trails, and before that even Native American trails and paths that were later followed when they built the railroad tracks. And then alongside those in the 19-teens came something called the National Old Trails Highway that linked together a bunch of the old trails. And then later the first version of Route 66 would follow that. So there's a lot of places where the railroad history and the Route 66 history intersect. And this is one of them, because inside this old historic railroad Harvey house is not only the Western America Railroad Museum featuring all kinds of cool artifacts and miniature trains and a couple of
really scary mannequins and some less scary mannequins. But also around the back is Barstow's Route 66 Museum. Yes, I know, we've been here before, but it is always worth another visit. Oh, I like the look of this, huh? I don't know how to play checkers. That's okay. Neither do I. Dang, someday it would be pretty cool to own a horseless carriage. I would need so much less hay. Man, I love Route 66 museums, and I bet you're thinking to yourself, you know, if Victorville and Barstow got together and put all their collections together, they could have one huge Route 66 museum. Maybe they get Albert Acura's stuff over there in San Bernardino. And yeah, that would make one heck of a mega museum, but it would be so much more boring. I love the fact that every Route 66 museum is unique and small. It gives you a reason and an excuse to keep stopping along old Route 66. Because every single place has different artifacts and different things to see. Now this is pretty close to home for me, so of course I do have other videos about these places. They're a little longer, a little more detailed. So maybe browse my other videos if you ever get a chance. And definitely make sure to stop by this museum if you're ever in Barstow. I got a great gift shop. Ka-chow! I really gotta push towards Arizona today, so for now, it's time to head back to old Route 66. Which right now is right here on Main Street in Barstow. Route 66 certainly went down a lot of main streets, and a lot of main streets that were actually called Main Street. Now some of these Main Street USA areas have definitely seen better days, but I love driving down them. This is why Route 66 is often called the Main Street of America. We're definitely gonna be seeing a lot of those little old town areas on our trip. But right now we gotta make our way through town and get ourselves out into the desert. Okay, we've come a long way now down the old Mother Road. You can see it's starting to look like that classic desert highway out here. We just passed Dagget, an old railroad town from the old west. And look at this. I believe what we're seeing here is the old Dagget inspection station. Just like it does today on the modern interstate, California maintained these agricultural inspection stations along the highway. They always stop the cars and ask if you have any fruits or vegetables or whatever inside. And this was the one for old Route 66, now sadly abandoned on the side of the highway. Oh, this is really cool here. Down here on the ground, you can just make out, well, let me get to the other side of it, you can just make out faint traces of the word stop here. Nowadays, there's more pigeons than people over here. Look at this. This is the old inspection station where the guards, people from Department of Agriculture or Highway Patrol or whatever, would have hung out right in there. Now the reason this is significant and the reason why I pulled over is it was at agricultural stations like this during the Dust Bowl in the 1930s that many of the Okies that had traveled all the way here from other parts of the country seeking jobs in California were stopped and turned around. If you were poor and down on your luck and could not prove that you had a job waiting for you in California, even if you had spent your last dime to get here, crossing the deserts, crossing pretty much the whole country, more likely than not, when you got stopped right here, you would have been sent packing. I believe there were also other inspection stations further east than this one, but you ever see that scene in The Grapes of Wrath where they're trying to cross over the California border and they're asking if they have any fruits or vegetables or anything like that? Still happens to this day, although further over there on the interstate. Not sure if this particular inspection station dates from the period we're talking about. I just thought it was pretty interesting. All right, crossing under the interstate now. You can see we haven't gone too far away from the modern routes, but that is going to be changing soon. But first I wanted to pull over in Newberry Springs here and take a look at this. At the moment it's used to house Deal's Plumbing. Not very exciting. And you can see an older wooden sign on the building that says feed, so it was also used at one point as a feed store. I always thought, oh, that's cool, like that old 1950s feed store over there on Route 66. Turns out this building here is way, way older than that. This building used to be known as the Cliff House, and it dates all the way back to the 1920s, even before old Route 66 was here at all. In old photographs, you can see those old-timey gas pumps right in front of this building here, and rows of small tourist cabins, some of which may survive, because I see several small structures here nearby. The Cliff House obviously derived its name from, you know, that, the cliff, and clearly looks like it was updated at some point along its long history to to be a little more Old West looking. Not only was this a gas station and a tourist court with those little cabins there for people to stay in, an early version of a motel, it was basically a full-on resort out here in the desert. And look at that, see back there? Those are the remnants of the swimming pool that was out here at the Cliff House. Doesn't look like much these days, but man, that definitely would have been very exciting to come out to the desert and go swimming in a place like this back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 1950s. I love the fact too that this was obviously mostly built above ground and just used dirt and rock to fill it in, a little concrete. Presto changeo, pool. That is pretty amazing. I've driven back. That is so mind-blowing. What's even more mind-blowing is that I never noticed this and all the other times I passed by. Look over here. You can see those very small, almost shed-like tourist cabins. Remember those old Model T Fords we were seeing in those museums? Imagine driving one of those out here, staying in a little tourist cabin, taking a swim. Honestly, that doesn't sound half bad now. We got a lot more ground to cover. I mean, a lot. I'm gonna be driving all night long after you guys are gone. But before we leave Newberry Springs, it is worth pulling over here so that I can give you guys a peek at this. The world famous Bagdad Cafe. Now there actually was a town of Baghdad out here in the desert, and there really was an original Bagdad Cafe, but this wasn't it. This is still in Newberry Springs, but it was renamed Bagdad Cafe after the movie Bagdad Cafe was shot in there. It's a pretty cool little Route 66 footnote, and I've passed by a lot of times and people always leave a comment, how come you didn't show the Bagdad Cafe? So there you go. Personally, I think there's a lot more interesting stuff out here, like this old abandoned gas station and Tony's Cafe back there, Italian and American food. I was gonna try to get a closer look, but it seems to be very well guarded by these dogs here. Well, it's probably for the best. Because I'm driving the old sections of Route 66, I now have to drive many miles over very bumpy roads for a long time. It's pretty cool being the only car on the highway for the entire distance in front of you and the entire distance in the rear view mirror. Even if it does at times feel slightly, how should I put this? Hills have eyes-ish. The road out here is quite patchy, quite rough. They've done a lot of repairs on it in the last year or two, but there's still some patches where if your wheel hits it, you better hope you're holding on tightly to that steering wheel. Luckily for time's sake, but unluckily for nostalgia's sake, a big chunk of that old road is actually closed off, so we're gonna get a little time on the interstate. Oh, it's so smooth. Listen guys, I'm a fan of old Route 66, but there's nothing like a smooth piece of tarmac. Yes sirree, there's something to be said for modern roadways. Don't worry, I'm not gonna stay on the interstate all day. See, look at that, we're already back off the interstate. Remember this place? Welcome back to Ludlow, California, home of the Ludlow Motel. Some cool old vintage trucks. I never get tired of looking at these. And of course, the historic Ludlow Cafe. Last time I came out here, a lot of people left comments saying this looked like a church. Definitely a lot of Southern California churches were built around this same time period. Look at that. Now, the whole reason that I'm in Ludlow is this is the point where we were going to split back off of the interstate and cruise way out into the middle of nowhere. And while I'm happy to report that the little house of Ludlow is still here, look at this happy little fella. A ton of orange signs down there at the beginning of this road inform me that the road closures up ahead are quite numerous. So it looks like we're going to be heading to Arizona via the interstate. I gotta admit, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm okay with it for a couple of reasons. One, we've already been down to Amboy and along part of that old stretch of Route 66 before. And two, well, I live in Southern California and we've got to come back this way. The road closures are all because we had such an inordinate, unusual amount of rain this winter in Southern California. So between that and the flooding they had out here last year, it washed out quite a bit of the old Route 66 right-of-way or throughway or whatever. I'm not finding the right word. Isn't it weird that there's pigeons in here? Like from Paris to New York to, well, wherever we are, Ludlow, California. Like rats with wings. They just invited themselves wherever man went. I guess the noble pigeon went too. I think these pigeons here are part of some, anarchist commune. Okay, I know you guys hate the government. We'll leave you alone. Anyway, I am going to head over there back to the interstate so that we can make our way towards Route 66 in Arizona. And hopefully, God willing and the creek don't rise, we'll be able to come back this way on our way back to the Pacific Ocean, back home. Just gonna soak in one last peek here at this old abandoned garage. Nice to see that this place is still standing, because you never know with a structure like this. All right, I guess it's time for me to cue up some music, fire up Jiminy's engine here, or come heck or high water or Yoko Ono, make our way all the way across the California desert. Even along the interstate, when I'm traveling this part of the Mojave Desert through California, the words of C-3PO come to my mind. My, what a desolate place this is.
Desolate, but also eerily beautiful in a lot of ways. Haha, success! Some Route 66 that's open that's not part of the interstate.
Oh, huzzah! Some more Mother Road. Whew, now if only there was somewhere I could get a little gas. Wait a minute! I think we just might be in luck. It's like finding water in the desert. Quite literally. Check this out, I haven't been to this place for years, and I still can't really pronounce it.
But I don't need to pronounce it to know that this is freaking awesome.
Look at this.
Desert oasis, indeed.
Oh, this is a sight for sore eyes right here. Years and years ago, I stopped at this gas station with my band. We were not only struck by the fish tanks inside, but by these giant koi pond fountains on the outside in the middle of the desert. Dude, and we're talking serious godforsaken desert out there. Right now I can feel the splish splash of water in the wind. Look it, there's koi right there. Koi fish living off the Goffs exit of I-40 in the middle of the California desert, right alongside old Route 66. Koi fish. What do you think the old prospectors would have made of that, huh? This is the perfect, most wonderful, epic place to enjoy a nice, frosty Mountain Dew while I sit next to a beautiful fountain in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Ah, oh man, now that right there, that's what I call getting your kicks on old Route 66. I actually thought that I dreamed this place for the longest time because my band used to take I-10, which is way farther south in California, to and from Arizona. We stopped at every stop in the desert, and I always remembered this place because the signs inside that say, do not complain about our prices. We know they're twice as much as anywhere else. Do you realize we're in the middle of the desert? Have some common sense, people. I always loved that sign, but I never could find it again. I always thought it was on the other interstate because I was sleeping, I think, when we came through here, woke up in the middle of the night. And I'm glad to know that this place actually does exist. Weird. Bravo to whoever built and runs this place. This is amazing. Look at all those koi fish over there, and look, I don't know if you can see, look at the edge of this. Look at all those bees. Ooh, I guess even bees need water. I'd go and hang out and get closer to those bees like my favorite YouTuber, 628 Dirt Rooster. It's just that, as Winnie the Pooh always says, you never can tell with bees.
This place is worth stopping at just to see the triple pink flamingo fountain there. But it also happens to be
my portal back to Route 66.
And this section of original Route 66 leads to someplace really awesome that I've never been before. Before we get there though, just look at this. Look at how I'm right up next to this train here on this old lonely stretch of road. The logos on the train cars are a little bit different. The design is a little bit different. You can imagine nearly 100 years ago, people setting out on the early version of Route 66, passing along scenes very much like this. That's pretty cool. Although it's cooler now, literally, because now we have air conditioning. Whoa. Check this out. Welcome to Goffs, California. Established 1883, elevation 2,595 feet, population 23. And look at that. Here comes that train we passed earlier. That's fitting because Goffs was once one of those watering hole stops along the railroad that became a Route 66 town, then became an army town when an army camp was established here during World War II, then a ghost town, and finally this. Goffs today is probably one of the most remote museums on the planet. I think we showed up a little too late to go on inside. All the gates are locked. But you can see just past the fence there, the Goffs schoolhouse. I think built around 1914. This is where all the kids from far and wide around here would go to school. They were very proud of that schoolhouse, and with good reason, because there's not much else around here. Oh, how about that? Oh, there's a free newsletter in here, some history and some information on preserving the past. And check out all these old historic photos of the kids and the men and women of Goffs. I could not love or agree more with the message posted over the entrance here. And this is just part of why I love Route 66
so much because I like to study the past. I don't know if you can see them, but just inside the fence pole there are some rabbits. Look at them running. See them running? This is a pretty cool, pretty serene, very quiet, very interesting place out here. Goffs, California. The Mojave Desert Heritage and Cultural Association, I think I'm getting that right, has done one heck of a job preserving all these historic structures here, including, I believe, rebuilding a historic train depot down there that now houses what I believe is the largest archives for the Mojave Desert, something like that. It's been a while since I read up on Goffs. I wasn't expecting to come here today. I kind of forgot all about it. This is definitely one place I hope to return on my journey back to the Pacific Ocean. In the meantime, I've already filmed way more stuff than I thought I was even going to see today, and the sun is starting to go down in the old west. So it's time to complete that last stretch of desert before we get the Arizona state line, the Colorado River, in our sights. Incidentally, when's the last time you found yourself walking along down an abandoned stretch of desert highway like this, just out in the middle of nowhere with nothing but the sounds of doves and jumping rabbits and scurrying lizards? This is honestly wonderful. This alone would be worth a trip. This is amazing. It's like therapy being out here. No one is around but me. All right, home stretch. Still a good, wonderful chunk of winding Route 66 through the desert. On our way back to the interstate for just a second before we wind up in the last California town. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Needles, California, where it's 90 degrees, even at 7 in the evening. Downtown is just under that bridge there, but I couldn't pass by without stopping to take a look at this rad restored Texaco station. You know, I'm not an expert, but I think this one's gonna take some work. You know, isn't it funny that an old abandoned gas station is usually such a crazy eyesore, such an ugly old thing, but the second that they're painted and restored just a little bit, they take on this whole other amazing vibe. Nobody would want to tear this down, not now. Look at that. It's a wonder what a period correct paint job can do for a place. I think about that a lot actually in Southern California, where old 1950s and sometimes 1930s buildings have like modern writing all over them, and they look really run down and kind of sketchy. I always think if people just used the right font and the right paint scheme, a lot of those buildings would pop right back to life. I don't know about the LeBrun Motel over there, that might need a little more work. But places like this, for example, what a funky, cool, old, mid-century looking hotel, and then look at the sign. Doesn't really match. Just saying, imagine what a little makeover could do. Needles is a very interesting town. Charles Schultz, the creator of Peanuts, lived in Needles once, I think for like 2 years. Which is why the Peanuts character Spike, which I think is Snoopy's cousin? Brother? No, cousin, I think. Which is why his character comes from Needles. And check out the local Amtrak station, huh? This is the El Garces Hotel. Well, it was the El Garces Hotel. Now it's just the Amtrak station. But this was once one of those fancy Harvey House hotels along the side of the railroad tracks here. And this one was built in 1908. Think about that for a second. Mark Twain was still alive when they built this thing. Across the street there's a small museum, but it's another one of those Route 66 museums I never seem to come alongside of when it's open. That's okay. I have the feeling I'll be back someday. Well, the shadows are starting to get awfully long here in old Needles, and we're about to exit the town. Look at that. There's Needles' famous welcome sign, the wagon. Needles, California. Countless Route 66 travelers pass this on their way into the first town in California. And that includes the fictional Joad family. Needles can be briefly seen in The Grapes of Wrath, the movie version. And as they're coming into Needles, you can see a sign advertising Carty's Camp, which is an old Route 66 campground, now abandoned, right back there, behind the modern 66 motel. I'm hoping to come back and explore that further eventually, but it's about to be dark and there are people living in the front of the property. And I have this weird aversion to trespassing, especially when there's a danger of being shot. Still, I couldn't pass through Needles without mentioning it. And now, friends, our final exit. And our last piece of historic Route 66 for the day. Because yonder there is the Colorado River. And that means that this is our last stop. At least in California. Ladies and germs, if you look out there, you'll see two bridges. There's a close one that looks a little like the Golden Gate Bridge, but white, and then another one over there, that arched bridge right there. That is the bridge that used to carry all those classic Route 66 era cars over the Colorado River from Arizona over there here to California. Nowadays, both of those bridges over there only have Pacific gas and electric pipes going over the river. Gone are the days when the Okies and the old Jode family used to bring Grandma over to California that way. But this historic sign welcoming visitors to Arizona or into California still sits here, gazing over the border between states. And I always like to stop here either when I'm coming back to California or going out to Arizona to say my hellos and farewell. This time it's farewell to California, but I'm pretty sure we'll come back again. For now, I'm gonna get ready to cross that interstate bridge in to Arizona, but I'm gonna leave you here on the California side for tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow, or maybe the next day, depending on how long I sleep. Let me tell you, that was quite a drive. Anyway, we'll be back on historic Route 66. Make sure to check out the links down below in the description for how you could support the videos or pick up a sweet hat or a t-shirt. You can visit my website or my Instagram or my Facebook page and say hello. But until next time, it's goodbye, California, and goodbye to all of you. I'll see you all a little further along down the road. California, better kiss you goodbye, huh? Better give you a little kiss there. There's cactus needles all over this place. Oh, forget you, California. I'm going somewhere where there's no cactus at all. In Arizona, no cactus at all.